This morning, let me speak to the part of you that feels tired before the day has even begun. The part of you that smiles on the outside but is carrying a heavy weight on the inside. The part of you that loves God, trusts God, yet feels weak, overwhelmed, and stretched beyond its limit. Hear this clearly. Feeling weak does not mean you are defeated. Feeling overwhelmed does not mean you are abandoned. It simply means you have reached the point where human strength ends and divine strength begins. There are moments when life presses so hard that your prayers feel quiet, your faith feels fragile, and your spirit feels exhausted. But weakness is not a curse. It is an invitation. It is the doorway through which God's power enters most clearly. When you have nothing left to offer, heaven steps in with everything you need. So this morning we pray, not from a place of pride, but from a place of surrender. Father, we come to you honest and open. We admit that we are tired. We admit that some days feel heavier than we can handle. We admit that we have tried to be strong on our own, and it has drained us. But today, we lay that burden down. When our minds are overwhelmed, give us your peace. When our hearts are anxious, steady us with your presence. When our bodies feel weak, renew us with your strength. Teach us to stop fighting battles you never asked us to fight alone. Remind us that your strength is not released when we pretend to be strong, but when we are humble enough to depend on you. You are not looking for perfection. You are looking for trust. You are not waiting for us to get it all together. You are waiting for us to come to you as we are.
This morning, we choose faith over fear. We choose prayer over panic.
We choose surrender over struggle. Even if the situation doesn't change immediately, change us from the inside out. Give us the courage to take the next step, the wisdom to know what to release, and the peace to rest in your timing. Replace our exhaustion with endurance. Replace our confusion with clarity. Replace our weakness with supernatural strength. And as we rise from this prayer, we declare that this day will not control us. We will walk in purpose, grounded in truth and covered in grace. We will not be ruled by our emotions or crushed by our circumstances. We will move forward knowing that we are not alone and never forgotten. Weakness is often misunderstood. The world treats it like a flaw, something to hide, something to overcome as quickly as possible. We are taught to be strong at all costs, to push through pain, to never let anyone see us struggle. But weakness is not proof that something is wrong with you. It is proof that you are human. And more than that, it is proof that you have reached the edge of your own ability. That edge is not a dead end. It is a doorway. There comes a moment in life when effort alone is no longer enough. You have tried harder, stayed up later, prayed longer, pushed deeper, and still the weight remains. That moment can feel frightening because it strips away the illusion of control. You realize you cannot fix everything, cannot carry everything, cannot be everything. But this realization is not meant to crush you, it is meant to free you. Weakness exposes the limits of human strength so that a greater strength can take its place. When you are weak, you are no longer distracted by pride. You are no longer leaning on your own understanding. Weakness humbles you, and humility creates space for help to enter. It forces you to admit that you need something beyond yourself.
And that admission is powerful.
It shifts your posture from striving to trusting, from exhausting effort to expectant faith. Many people try to escape weakness, but growth is often born there. Weakness slows you down enough to listen. It softens your heart enough to receive direction. It removes the pressure to perform and replaces it with the freedom to depend. In those moments when you feel empty, worn out, and unsure, something deeper begins to work within you. Something not driven by willpower, but by grace. Weakness also reveals what you have been carrying that was never meant to be yours. It uncovers burdens you picked up because you felt responsible for everything and everyone. It shows you where you have been relying on yourself instead of releasing control. When you feel weak, it is often because you have been strong in the wrong ways for too long. There is a difference between strength that is forced and strength that is sustained. Forced strength burns out. Sustained strength flows. Weakness interrupts the cycle of burnout by reminding you that real power does not come from constant effort, but from proper alignment. When you stop trying to prove yourself, you make room to be supported. Weakness also refines your focus. When you are strong, you may depend on momentum. When you're weak, you depend on meaning. You begin to prioritize what truly matters because you no longer have energy to waste. Your values become clearer. Your prayers become more honest. Your faith becomes less about words and more about trust. In moments of weakness, fear often speaks louder, telling you that you are falling behind, that you are failing, that you are not enough. But weakness is not evidence of defeat. It is evidence that you are being reshaped. It is a season where false confidence is stripped away and replaced with something unshakable. What feels like loss is often preparation. Weakness teaches you how to rest without guilt. It breaks the belief that your worth is tied to productivity. It reminds you that you are valued not for what you produce, but for who you are. In that rest, clarity begins to form. Direction becomes sharper. Strength returns not as pressure, but as peace. The most dangerous thing is not weakness, but pretending you do not have any. Hidden weakness grows heavier because it is never released. Acknowledged weakness becomes lighter because it is shared, surrendered, and transformed. When you stop fighting your weakness, it stops fighting you. Weakness also deepens compassion. When you understand your own limits, you become gentler with others. You stop demanding perfection from people who are also tired, also learning, also growing. Your struggle becomes a bridge, not a barrier. What once embarrassed you becomes something that connects you to others in honesty and grace. There is strength that comes from being broken open rather than held together by force. Weakness cracks the surface so something stronger can form beneath it. It teaches you that resilience is not about never bending, but about knowing how to rise with help. When you reach the place where you can no longer rely on yourself, you are closer than you think to the source of true strength. Weakness positions you to receive what effort could never produce. It invites transformation rather than mere survival. It is not a sign that you are losing ground, but a sign that you are being rebuilt from a deeper foundation. There are moments when life feels unbearably heavy, when responsibilities stack up, emotions collide, and the pressure becomes more than your heart and mind can process. In those moments, overwhelm does not arrive to destroy you. It arrives to get your attention. It is a signal, not a sentence. It is not telling you that you are weak or incapable. It is telling you that something needs to be released. Overwhelm often shows up when you have been carrying too much for too long. It is the result of saying yes when you should have said no, holding on when you should have let go, and trying to manage outcomes that were never yours to control. The weight did not appear overnight, and it will not disappear by pretending it is not there. Overwhelm is your inner alarm system, warning you that you are operating beyond healthy limits. Many people respond to overwhelm by pushing harder. They assume more effort will fix the problem. They stay busy, stay distracted, stay tense, believing that if they can just hold on a little longer, things will stabilize. But overwhelm does not respond to pressure. It responds to surrender. The harder you fight it, the tighter it grips. The moment you release control, the moment you admit you cannot do this alone, the weight begins to shift. Surrender is often misunderstood as giving up, but it is actually a strategic decision. It is the choice to stop wasting energy on what you cannot change and start trusting a greater order beyond your understanding. Surrender does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop carrying everything by yourself. It is an act of wisdom, not weakness. Overwhelm exposes the illusion of control. It reveals how much of your peace has been tied to outcomes instead of trust. When everything feels like it depends on you, anxiety grows. When you accept that not everything is in your hands, peace begins to return. Surrender realigns your focus from managing every detail to resting in purpose. There is a quiet power in laying things down. When you release what is overwhelming you, you create space for clarity. Your mind becomes less crowded. Your emotions become less reactive. You begin to see options you could not see before because panic was blocking your vision. Surrender does no. T, remove responsibility. It removes unnecessary pressure. Overwhelm also reveals misplaced priorities. When everything feels urgent, nothing feels meaningful. Surrender helps you distinguish between what matters and what merely demands attention. It allows you to slow down long enough to make intentional choices rather than impulsive ones. In that slowing down, wisdom has room to speak. Quitting feels tempting when overwhelm peaks, but overwhelm is not a signal to walk away from your purpose. It is a signal to adjust how you are pursuing it. Sometimes the path is right, but the pace is wrong. Sometimes the goal is correct, but the method is draining you. Surrender invites reassessment without abandonment. Overwhelm can make you feel trapped, as if there's no way out and no margin to breathe. But surrender opens unseen doors. When you stop forcing solutions, solutions begin to surface. When you release the need to have all the answers, guidance becomes clearer. Control narrows perspective. Surrender expands it. There is also healing in admitting you are overwhelmed. Silence intensifies the burden. Honesty lightens it. The moment you acknowledge the weight, it becomes shareable. It becomes something that can be addressed rather than something that silently erodes your strength. Surrender begins with truth, and truth creates freedom. Overwhelm often feeds on fear of failing, fear of disappointing others, fear of losing control. Surrender confronts that fear by shifting the foundation of your confidence. Instead of trusting your ability to manage everything, you begin trusting that you are supported even when things feel uncertain. That trust changes how you carry the load. When you surrender, you do not lose direction, you gain alignment. You stop moving out of panic and start moving with intention. The noise quiets, the urgency softens, you regain the ability to respond instead of react. Overwhelm loses its power when it is no longer driving your decisions. Surrender also restores energy. Constant resistance drains you, but release replenishes you. When you stop fighting what is, you conserve strength for what truly matters. You begin to operate from peace instead of pressure, from confidence instead of fear, from trust instead of control. Overwhelm may feel like a breaking point, but it is often a turning point. It is the place where self-reliance ends and deeper trust begins. It is not an enemy to defeat, but a message to receive, calling you to loosen your grip and shift your posture, reminding you that you do not have to quit to find relief. You simply have to let go. There's a quiet pressure many people live under, the pressure of believing they must handle everything on their own. It often begins subtly with the desire to be reliable, to be strong, to not burden anyone else. Over time, that desire turns into a habit of self-reliance that feels responsible on the surface but becomes destructive underneath. You start convincing yourself that asking for help is weakness, that carrying everything alone proves your worth, and that if you stop holding it all together, everything will fall apart. But you were never designed to live that way. You were never meant to carry every problem, every expectation, and every outcome on your own shoulders. The weight you feel is not a sign that you are failing. It is a sign that you have been carrying more than one person was ever meant to bear. Strength was never meant to be isolated. Support was always part of the design. Carrying everything alone slowly drains you, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. It turns rest into guilt and vulnerability into fear. You may look capable on the outside, but inside you are exhausted, overwhelmed, and silently asking how long. You can keep going like this. The danger is not in being tired. The danger is in normalizing exhaustion as if it is proof of commitment or faithfulness. When you refuse help, you limit how relief can reach you. You close doors that were meant to open. Support often comes through people, wisdom, encouragement, and shared burdens. Rejecting help does not make you stronger. It makes the load heavier. Independence taken too far becomes isolation, and isolation amplifies struggle. There is courage in admitting that you cannot do this alone. It takes strength to say, I need help, because it means you are no longer pretending. It means you are choosing honesty over image. Real strength is not measured by how much you can endure in silence, but by how wisely you respond when the weight becomes too much. Carrying everything alone also distorts perspective. When you are the only one holding the burden, every problem feels larger than it is.
Every setback feels final. Every delay feels personal.
Shared weight feels lighter, not because the problem disappears, but because perspective returns. When someone else stands with you, reminds you of truth, or helps you see clearly, the pressure loses its intensity. There is also a spiritual cost to self-reliance. When you rely only on yourself, you cut off access to a deeper source of strength. You begin to operate from limited resources instead of unlimited provision. Trust is replaced by control, and peace is replaced by constant effort. The moment you admit you cannot carry this alone, you create space for strength beyond your own to sustain you. Many people fear that if they stop carrying everything, things will collapse. But what often collapses is not purpose, but pride. What falls away is not destiny, but unnecessary pressure. Letting go does not mean you stop being responsible. It means you stop being unrealistic about what one person can handle. You are not meant to be the answer to every problem in your life. You were meant to be a participant, not the sole provider of solutions. There is relief in understanding that some things require partnership, guidance, and shared effort. There are battles that cannot be won in isolation because isolation was never part of the strategy. Carrying everything alone also disconnects you from community. It creates emotional distance because you believe no one would understand or no one should be bothered. But connection is where healing flows. Support does not weaken you. It stabilizes you. It reminds you that you are seen, valued, and not alone in your struggle. When you allow others to help, you do not lose dignity. You gain balance. You learn that receiving is just as important as giving. You discover that strength flows in both directions. Accepting help teaches humility, and humility keeps you grounded when pressure rises. The belief that you must do everything alone often comes from fear of disappointment. Fear that if you lean on someone, they will let you down. Fear that if you trust, you will be exposed. But carrying everything yourself guarantees exhaustion, while shared weight at least offers the possibility of relief. There is freedom in releasing the false responsibility of being everything for everyone. You can still care deeply without carrying the full burden. You can still show up without sacrificing your well-being. You can still be faithful without being fatigued beyond measure. The moment you stop carrying everything alone, you begin to breathe differently. Your shoulders relax, your thoughts slow down, your heart opens to the idea that you are supported, that you were never abandoned to figure it all out by yourself, that help has always been available, waiting for you to stop pretending you don't need it. Many people believe that peace is something that arrives after everything is fixed. They tell themselves they will rest once the problem is solved, relax once the answer comes, and feel calm once the pressure is gone. Until then, they live in a constant state of tension, waiting for circumstances to change before allowing their hearts to settle. But peace does not work that way. Peace is not a reward at the end of the struggle. It is a resource meant to carry you through it. Waiting for perfect conditions before finding peace only keeps you trapped in anxiety. Problems take time. Answers unfold slowly. If your peace depends on resolution, you will spend most of your life unsettled. True peace is not the absence of trouble, it is the presence of stability in the middle of uncertainty. It shows up before clarity, before closure, before the outcome makes sense. Peace begins on the inside. It is an internal posture, not an external arrangement. When your heart is anchored, your circumstances lose their power to control you. The storm may still be loud, but it no longer dictates your direction. Peace quiets the inner chaos, even when outer chaos remains. There is a difference between calm that comes from control and calm that comes from trust. Control-based calm is fragile. It depends on everything going according to plan. Trust-based peace is resilient. It holds steady even when plans fall apart. When peace is rooted in trust, it does not wait for evidence. It rests in assurance. An unsettled mind magnifies problems. Every delay feels threatening. Every obstacle feels personal. Peace changes how you interpret what is happening. It does not deny reality, but it removes panic from the equation. With peace, you can think clearly. You can respond wisely. You can take measured steps instead of frantic ones. Peace also protects your energy. Anxiety drains strength, clouds judgment, and short. As patience, peace preserves emotional and mental resources so you are not exhausted before the solution arrives. It allows you to endure the process without being damaged by it. Many people resist peace because they fear it means acceptance of a bad situation. But peace does not mean you approve of the problem. It means you refuse to let the problem dominate your inner life. You can pursue change without being consumed by distress. You can wait without being restless. Peace gives you the ability to stand firm without shutting down. Peace creates space for insight. When your mind is racing, you cannot hear guidance. When your heart is calm, wisdom becomes clearer. Peace sharpens perception. It helps you recognize what to do next and what to leave alone. Often the answer you are searching for becomes visible only after peace settles in. There is also healing power in peace. Stress affects the body, the mind, and the spirit. Constant worry keeps you in survival mode. Peace signals safety, allowing restoration to begin. It tells your system that you are not in danger, even if the situation is unresolved. That sense of safety is essential for resilience. Peace is a decision as much as it is a gift. It is the choice to stop rehearsing worst-case scenarios. It is the choice to release the need to control every detail. It is the choice to trust that you are being guided, even when the path is unclear. Each time you choose peace, you weaken the grip of fear. When peace leads, patience follows. You stop rushing outcomes. You stop forcing timing. You allow things to unfold without constant pressure. Patience is not passive, it is confident waiting. It flows naturally when peace is present. Peace also changes how you show up for others. When you are calm inside, you become a source of stability instead of stress. You listen better. You speak more gently. You respond instead of react. Peace becomes contagious, influencing the environment around you. It is possible to be at peace while still asking questions, still seeking answers, still believing for change. Peace does not cancel hope. It sustains it. Hope without peace becomes desperation. Peace keeps hope grounded and steady. Many breakthroughs are delayed not because of lack of effort, but because anxiety is clouding judgment. Peace clears the fog. It helps you see the open door instead of obsessing over the closed one. It reorients your focus from what you cannot control to what you can steward well. Peace before the problem is solved is not denial. It is alignment. It means you are no longer letting uncertainty define your emotional state. You choose stability over stress, trust over tension, and clarity over chaos, allowing peace to guard your heart while the situation continues to unfold. Many people spend their lives waiting for external change, believing that once circumstances shift, everything inside them will automatically fall into place. They focus on doors opening, situations improving, and problems resolving, assuming that peace, strength, and confidence will follow. But lasting transformation does not begin on the outside. It begins within. Before life changes around you, something must be restored inside you. Internal renewal is the foundation of sustainable strength. When the inner life is neglected, even good outcomes feel heavy. Success without renewal leads to burnout. Progress without restoration leads to emptiness. You can achieve everything you hope for and still feel exhausted if your inner world has not been strengthened. Renewal ensures that when external change arrives, you are able to carry it without collapsing under its weight. The inner life shapes how you experience everything else. Two people can face the same circumstances and respond completely differently based on what is happening inside them. A renewed mind sees possibility where others see threat. A restored spirit remains steady when pressure rises. Without inner renewal, every challenge feels overwhelming because there is no internal reserve to draw from. Renewal starts with awareness. It begins when you notice that something inside you is depleted. It requires honesty about emotional fatigue, mental overload, and spiritual dryness. Ignoring inner exhaustion does not make it disappear. It deepens it. Renewal invites you to slow down long enough to recognize what needs healing before it manifests as breakdown. Internal renewal also involves letting go of unhealthy thought patterns. Many people carry beliefs that quietly drain them. Beliefs that they must earn rest, that they must always be strong, that their worth is tied to performance. These thoughts operate beneath the surface, shaping behavior and fueling exhaustion. Renewal challenges these patterns and replaces them with truth that sustains rather than depletes. The mind plays a critical role in renewal. A restless mind keeps the body tense and the heart unsettled. Renewal calms mental noise, allowing clarity to replace confusion. It does not remove responsibility, it restores perspective. With renewed thinking, problems are approached with wisdom instead of fear, patience instead of panic. Emotional renewal is equally important. Suppressed emotions do not disappear, they accumulate. Over time, they surface as irritability, numbness, or fatigue. Renewal gives permission to feel without being overwhelmed by feeling. It creates space for grief, disappointment, and frustration to be processed instead of buried. When emotions are acknowledged, they lose their power to control behavior. Spiritual renewal reconnects you to purpose. It reminds you why you are doing what you are doing. Without that company, Nection, tasks become burdens, and responsibilities become resentments. Renewal restores meaning, transforming obligation into calling, and pressure into purpose. It realigns effort with intention. External breakthroughs often demand greater capacity. New opportunities require new levels of endurance, focus, and wisdom. Without inner renewal, growth becomes a threat instead of a blessing. Renewal expands your capacity so that advancement does not overwhelm you. It prepares you to receive what is coming without losing yourself in the process. Renewal also teaches you to rest without guilt. Rest is not inactivity, it is restoration. It is the deliberate act of refilling what has been poured out. Renewal reframes rest as necessary rather than optional. It honors limits instead of ignoring them. Through rest, strength is rebuilt and clarity returns. There is a rhythm to renewal. It is not a one-time event, but an ongoing practice. Just as the body requires regular nourishment, the inner life requires consistent care. Neglect leads to depletion. Attention leads to vitality. Renewal keeps you responsive instead of reactive, present instead of pressured. Internal renewal changes how you handle delay. When the inside is restored, waiting becomes bearable. You are not desperate for outcomes because your sense of stability does not depend on immediate results. Renewal gives you the ability to remain grounded while things are still unfolding. It also influences how you relate to others. A renewed inner life produces patience, empathy, and clarity in communication. You become less defensive and more discerning. You respond from fullness instead of frustration. Relationships improve because you are no longer expecting others to fill what only renewal can restore. Renewal shifts focus from survival to growth. When you are depleted, you aim to get through the day. When you are renewed, you aim to grow through the season. Challenges become opportunities for development rather than threats to endure. Renewal reframes struggle as part of strengthening rather than something to escape. When inner renewal takes place, external change becomes sustainable. You are no longer chasing relief, you are cultivating resilience. You move forward with steadiness, carrying strength that does not depend on circumstances, anchored by restoration that continues to shape how you think, feel, and move through life. Many people wake up each day measuring their strength by how they feel. They feel confident, they move forward boldly. If they feel tired, uncertain, or afraid, they hesitate. But strength was never meant to be determined by emotion alone. Feelings rise and fall, but the strength that carries you forward is deeper than mood or moment. There is a kind of strength that does not originate within you, yet sustains you when your own reserves are empty. Rising in strength that is not your own requires a shift in mindset. It means accepting that you do not have to generate everything you need. You are not the source, you are the vessel. When you understand this, pressure lifts. You stop striving to manufacture confidence and begin to move from trust. You take steps not because you feel ready, but because you are supported. This kind of strength shows up most clearly when you choose to move forward despite uncertainty. It does not wait for perfect clarity or ideal conditions. It carries you through discomfort and doubt, not by eliminating them, but by steadying you in the middle of them. You discover that you can walk through challenges that once intimidated you, not because you suddenly became fearless, but because fear no longer has the final word. Strength that is not your own also changes how you define victory. Victory is no longer about flawless execution or immediate results. It becomes about obedience, perseverance, and faithfulness in small steps. Right today may simply mean getting out of bed with intention, speaking truth over your thoughts, or choosing not to quit when quitting feels easier. This strength operates quietly. It does not always announce itself with confidence or enthusiasm. Sometimes it shows up as endurance. Sometimes it looks like patience. Sometimes it appears as calm in the middle of chaos. It sustains you over time rather than impressing in a moment. When you rely on strength beyond yourself, comparison loses its grip. You stop measuring your pace against others because you are no longer drawing from the same source. Your journey becomes personal and purposeful. You understand that progress is not about speed, but about direction. Rising in this strength also reshapes how you face resistance. Obstacles no longer feel like signs to stop, but signals to depend more deeply. Resistance reveals where you are tempted to rely on yourself instead of trusting support that does not fail. Each challenge becomes an opportunity to deepen reliance rather than retreat. This strength gives you courage to act even when confidence is absent. Confidence often follows action, not the other way around. When you step forward in trust, confidence grows. You learn that courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to move anyway. There is humility in rising this way. You acknowledge that you do not have all the answers, yet you move forward with assurance. You accept guidance. You remain teachable. You stay grounded even when progress is made. This humility protects you from burnout and arrogance alike. Strength that is not your own also brings consistency. Emotional strength fluctuates, but supported strength endures. It helps you show up on difficult days, not with excitement, but with faithfulness. Over time, that consistency builds momentum. When you rise in this strength, you begin to speak differently to yourself. Harsh self-criticism gives way to truth. You stop disqualifying yourself because of weakness. You stop waiting to feel strong before acting. You understand that strength often meets you after you begin moving. This strength also guards your peace. Because it does not depend on performance, failure does not devastate you. You learn from setbacks without being defined by them. You recover more quickly because your identity is not tied to outcome. Rising today in strength that is not your own means you stop negotiating with fear. You stop postponing purpose until conditions improve. You move forward aware of your limitations, but confident in support beyond them. You take the next step, not because it is easy, but because you are not walking alone. This kind of strength empowers you to face the day with quiet resolve. You may not feel powerful, but you are upheld. You may not feel prepared, but you are equipped. You may not feel fearless, but you are steady. Each step becomes an act of trust. Each decision an expression of reliance. Each moment a reminder that your ability is not the limit of what is possible through you.